I'm going to leave a pretty good tail on this one because this is a... All right, see what I've done? I've went through that mesh. I'm going to make one simple loop. That's all you do. One thing. You don't have to double tie it because it's not going anyplace. Pull that good and tight. All right, we're ready to resume. I'm just going to tie a couple of meshes to show you where we're at, and that's going to pretty well wrap this up till we get to the point where you finish this thing. I'm going to come in, I'm going to resume. Notice that first one. It's very important that you have that, keep that that knot tight against that board, because if you don't, see how tight that knot is? That's what you want. You want that mesh to stay nice and tight. Okay. Okay, now we are ready to get started. I'm going to discard that. And to start this thing, so I put my foot down on that line because you got to keep it taut. And I run it across my leg like this, and I'm going to start. And you want to get beyond this bad spot because this will be cut off at the end. As you see, I'm going to start out with a simple half hitch. I run this, I call it a foot line, right up against that tail. This is the tail. I'm going to reach over here and I'm going to make a simple half hitch. And I'm going to slide this up and pull it right tight against that knot. And I'm going to do this again. I'm going to double tie it. Make sure that it won't slip and slide around. See how you pull that up and the one side locks the other one. Now I'm going to reach down here and I'm going to catch my first mesh. And I'm going to come down and it's going to start. I'm going to show you why I do it this way in a little bit. First I'm going to do a few because it won't do me no much good to tell you now. It's simple through it, and that's the simple old knot. That's all there is to that. Then I'm going to come over here again with another half hitch. And try to keep them somewhat the same space. And you leave a little bit of a gap in here. Can you see a little bit of a gap between the knot and the actual foot line? You want to leave that little bit of a space. Then you're going to come down and pick up a second half hitch. All right, now, before I put my sinker on, I'm going to come up. Now this one you put much further. You reach out, this mesh, you want to push it out about as far as you can reach it. Then you're going to come in, make a loop, come up through, and just a simple knot. Now I'm going to reach down here and I'm going to slide a sinker up into place. The sinker is right up against those two half hitches. Then I'm going to come in with a half hitch, a double half hitch, pull it nice and snug, okay. Then I'm going to reach up here and get the next mash, and I'm going to come down, the same thing. And this is basically the whole way around this thing. Is what you want to do is I'm going to come down a half hitch. Leave my space. I'm doing this extra slow for you so that you know that you can grasp it. I don't want to do this too fast. Come in, pick up my next mash. Again, make you a loop. Come back in between. And always try to make, as I told you earlier, always try to keep that knot tied up on top of this mesh. You don't want it down below it. If you tie it down below it, it's going to slip and slide. You don't want that. All right, I'm going to come back. Now I'm ready for the sinker. All right, I'm going to reach down and catch that sinker, slide it right up. A little bit now, you'll be able to really see what I'm doing. Half hitch. You can slide that with your fingers until you pull that second knot. You can see a little bit. See how see the diamonds start? When I say diamond, look right across here. You want to look right across here, that second row, the first row up above your double rows where you really start seeing that diamond. And that's what you want to see. If you maintain that spacing, you won't have any problems with there's issues. This is a very important part of making a net, and that's properly installing this, because if you don't, you have to get enough lead line on it. I'll talk about that in a minute, what will happen to you if you don't. Now, after you have completed this net, you have all your weights on it. I want to show you this again. See that diamond shape? See how pretty much I've got these sinkers pretty much the same spacing apart. But anyhow, I think that that we've pretty well covered everything. And again, if you run into any issues, and after you complete, that line's going to be all the way around it. So what you'll want to do, you'll want to take the other end. Now, once you do not cut that line till you put the last sinker on. Once you've put that last weight on here, then you can take and cut it off and leave a little bit sticking over. And you just take and overlap them. You will take and overlap them and take these lines and just a series of half hitches over the two. Leave it sticking out because you're going to cut it off later. But you want to overlap them, and it's going to be tight quarters here. You'll have your needle line on one side, your tail line on the other. You will just do a series of half hitches like I did putting it on, and work to the middle, halfway with one, halfway with the other. Then when you get to the center, just pull your half hitches down good and tight, and you're going to have to burn it off at this point. I've told you about, I don't recommend anybody burning nylon until you're really comfortable with it. But at this point, it needs to be burned off, and I've showed you how to burn it and how careful to be with that. And then you'll take the fingernail polish, and you will take and coat that good and solid. You'll paint that fingernail polish on there. That thing will never come loose. And of course, before you put the fingernail polish, take a good sharp knife and cut that line, cut it off. Just cut both sides right off. It's not going to be the prettiest thing in the world, but you're not going to see it when you're fishing anyway. So, with that said, I think at this point, the next session we'll move back outdoors where it's sunny, and the next segment will be installing the tucks. I call them tucks. Modern people, they call them braille lines. Now, this is a net that we put the sinkers on. I demonstrated that. Now I'm to the point of the tucks onto the swivel. As you can see, I've taken number bonded nylon, number 15. If your net's 7 foot and you've got 16 widenings, then what you want, you're going to have to take, you're only going to have 8, you're going to cut 8 tucks or braille lines, whichever you prefer to use. It'll be 8 times 7 plus add about 1.5 foot to it. So you want to cut your tucks a good 14, let's say 15 and a half feet. Now, and what you do, you cut them in that length, and as you can see what I've done, I put them through my horn, through the, this is called the swivel, part of the horn. They go through, and then you want to come down and you get them even. As you can see, I just tied a little temporary slip knot here so that I could keep the ends together. As you can see what I have here. Now I'm going to drop this, and as you can see, in order for these things not to slip and slide, you want them secured to this tuck, horn, especially until we secure them into that net, which we're going to do shortly. I take some small diameter bonded twine. It can be 4, 5, or 6, whatever you have, and you just do it. I just take and do a series of half hitches. I'll take it and start in the center, and I go both directions with it. And then you can see what I did is when I get to the end, I have cut that off and burned it off and bonded it. I'm to the point now, I've secured this, so these can't go anywhere. And what I've done, I've taken half of them, because remember, we looped them over. We only had 8 tucks. That's going to translate to 16 when I spread them out, 8 on each side. In order to keep them relatively straight, I've just putting a little piece of twine here. As you can see what I did, I just simply, and you'll see the reason for that here shortly. And I got a little bit ahead of myself because this is very important. As you remember, we started that net on a piece of twine. And that's the very twine that's going to be that's being used to secure the top of this net to the horn. Okay, now the horn is in place onto the net, the tucks are cut, and I'm ready to thread them. I'm simply going to just push them down through the net. And sometimes this is fun because the ends of that number 15 those burnt ends tend to kind of grab, as you can see. The tucks are in and they're ready to be. We're going to spread the net out and I'm going to show you how to secure them, get ready for the final installation. It's got a nice spread. It's really nice. Really nice. The chances of them getting this far are remote. You know what I'm saying? Okay. All right, we're to the point now, as you can see, they've got this net spread out, open, onto the ground, you want to do this in a place like this, a nice patio or something, or driveway, where you don't want to do it out on the grass. And as you can see, you turn that net inside out. Now, I'm ready. I got to tell you, I hadn't mentioned this, but a 7-foot net, don't ever let somebody tell you, I don't care what the length of it is, if it's 7 foot, 8 foot, 12 foot, or whatever it is, if it's a 7-foot net and you spread it out on the ground, it's not going to be 14 feet from this side of this lead line to that side. And the reason for that is when you spread it out, as you can see that webbing, how it starts pulling in. Therefore, the actual spread on this thing, or diameter, as they call it, will be probably 13, something like that. And I'm simply going to I'm going to lay a tuck right in line with that row of widenings. I'm going to lay a tuck right in line with that row. With that row. The last two, number 15 and number 16. They're exactly where they need to be. Now what I'm going to do is just do a quick, I'm going to come down, and all I'm going to do is just like that. Just take and temporarily secure it to the foot line, because this comes back loose when I start tying them in, which I'll show you in just a minute. I just take them like so. Okay, that's it. I'm ready to stand this thing up. We're going to turn it back right side. I'm going to reach down, catch this horn, and gently I'm going to pick it up. You don't have to worry about them coming loose. Look how long I got those cords. And I'm going to show you. Now we're going to go over to the final stage of this thing, or next to the final part of what we're going to do. I hadn't put the handle on this for a reason. So at this point, let's move on over to where I'm going to physically tie them onto that lead line. All right, I'm in here at my favorite little spot here for doing this. As you can see, I've got the net hanging up. I've made a little device for hanging this thing. I'll show you that when I finish tying these in. For the sake of time, I've went ahead and tied all of these things in place with the exception of 4. I figure you ought to be able to get enough information. Now, I've untied that knot. Remember that temporary knot that I showed you out there? I've untied that. Now I'm going to come through the bottom. Okay? Now, I have to make sure that this thing stays tight and snug. Now I'm going to come on the inside So what I'm going to tie here is a real fancy square knot. You see what I've got? I've started on this side. I'm going to come on the other side now. Now, I've got this thing ready. Notice, for the sake of keeping this thing from tangling so bad, notice that I've brought this thing up just a little bit. I've seen some of the old fishermen bring them up this tall, but it looks like hoots. So what I've learned to do, I just do it just enough to keep it tight. Nothing worse than tucks on any store-bought net you buy. I don't care where you buy one. Off that internet, the tucks are hanging down. They're too long and you can't tell them anything. I don't know where they're. Now, as you can see, Joe, can you see that little square knot there, buddy?
Yeah, I see it.
I got that nice and in position, and I'm going to pull it. You really want that tight. Now, I'm just going to do a series of half hitches. It could come loose. You'd be able to secure this thing back to the foot line. You wouldn't be able to do it like this, but you could tie it to the line coming down. There's nothing worse. The old timers, they didn't do it this way. I'll show you in a minute how they did it. Let me go ahead and do this one. And now you know why at the beginning of this session I showed you about using the baby powder. Now you know why. Because it really makes a difference on your hands. All right, now I've got that thing pretty well secured down there. I don't know, I've got 5 or 6 half hitches. Now, my scissors disappeared, so what I'm going to do, normally I've told you everything about using scissors. I don't use scissors, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to take and strike a match. I'm going to burn this. I have to do this pretty fast. Joe, see what I'm doing? I burn that off, discard it, then I'm going to melt this. This is simple. This is going to melt. You have to be so careful. And I take the end of that match, and literally it will melt and bond to that foot line. Now I'm on my last one. All right, I untied that temporary knot. Joe, I hope I'm not going too fast.
You're doing good. Just keep your left hand tilted the way it is.
All right, now, see I've got my little loop. I'm on the inside of that tuck running up, because this is the last time now. Come through again. Pull it good and tight. I'll do one more for good measure. Like I said, there's no set amount. 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever you feel like doing. Now, that's the last one. It's not going to be long, buddy, and this one is ready to head to the beach. See what I'm doing? Can you see that? Be careful. You want to smear that end of that nylon right up against that. Okay, now that net's ready to go. Remember I've been talking about the clear fingernail polish, the importance of using the clear. Let me find out where I started. I've already done these. Okay, so I've got 4 more to do. See what I'm going to do? I'm going to turn this thing up.